Catherine from the Little Music Bazaar, and today I'd like to talk to you about harmonics. That's natural harmonics, not artificial harmonics. Natural harmonics are the ones where you just place your finger lightly on the string and it plays a very pure note, as opposed to artificial harmonics, which is when you put your one finger down really firmly and press the other one lightly. But they're actually quite difficult to do, so we're not going to go into that today. I'm going to talk about natural harmonics, and I'm not going to talk too much about what harmonics are. In fact, I'm not going to talk about what harmonics are at all, because that's physics, and I don't think you really want to hear that, all that. So I'm just going to talk about how you can play harmonics and how they might be used, and I'm also going to talk to you about them in the context of a piece that I wrote where I used some harmonics. To get to play harmonics, to play a nice harmonic, we quite often put our fourth finger, or our fingers, lightly down on the string. And we put our finger lightly on the string, and it creates those sort of notes, a bit like overtones, that we can hear as harmonics. And of course, what's important is this is the bit of the violin that vibrates from the bridge. The string vibrates from the bridge to the nut. So to get different harmonics, we actually can divide that length of string into like halfway and a third and a quarter, and that's how we can find which harmonics are there. So for instance, if you played your fourth finger, say on the A string, halfway between, we get that note, and that note is a 1 octave above the open string that you're playing on, and it's the same for any of the strings. And I should say it's the same whatever instrument you're playing as well, whether you're playing viola, cello, bass, and of course the bigger instruments have loads more harmonics because of course they've got longer strings. So there's all kinds of things you can do, a lot more harmonics available to you in the sort of more bass instruments. And if you play a quarter of the way up, you'll get a note that is 2 octaves higher than the string you're on. And a third of the way up, you'll get a note which is an octave above the next open string up. So if you play that note, it's actually an octave higher than E. So that's an example of the way you can use the sort of different lengths of the string divided into sections on the instrument to see what different notes you can play. But of course there's all kinds of harmonics in between those different intervals. To get harmonics to play really clearly, I always advise that you play your bow pretty close to the bridge, not right on the bridge or it will be a bit edgy sounding. But if you draw as close to the bridge without getting too close, and you want to draw quite fast with a pretty flat hair actually, to give it the maximum chance of sounding. I mean, you can do it over the fingerboard, you get a much quieter note, but it's actually it's a little bit more tricky to get it to really sound there. But if you really play with a nice flat hair near the bridge and draw your bow quite fast, you'll get a really nice clear harmonic. So like I said earlier, natural harmonics create a very clear and pure sound, and it's been used over the years by composers to create different effects and different sounds in their music. And I used harmonics specifically in a piece that I wrote in 2021 called Moonlight Over the Ocean. And I decided to put harmonics in this because I felt that the harmonics sounded like a shaft of light. And when I was thinking about the moonlight over the ocean, it kind of created that kind of mood, and it created that kind of sound that I felt went with the piece. Because I decided to write Moonlight Over the Ocean after I went with my family on holiday to Northumberland, to a place called Sea Houses. I'm actually from Northumberland, and we had a lovely week in Sea Houses. We had incredible weather, and we actually went in the sea, in the North Sea there, and it was just great. But one evening we sat on the beach in the dark by ourselves. There was nobody else there, and we watched the moon coming up and the moonlight as it came across the sea. And it was a really special moment, and the sea was incredibly calm, and we were sitting there on the beach, the four of us. My son had his speaker on, so we had mood music in the background, and we were just sitting there in the quiet watching this. It was just beautiful. And then I imagined that further out to sea, I was thinking about how the roll, even though it was flat and calm, the roll of the ocean, and I was inspired to write this piece. And there is a sort of rolling sound in this music which I've created. It has quite a big piano part, this piece, but you can get a backing track to play with it. So if you haven't got a pianist who can play this part, don't panic. So the piano opening as a sort of a rolling, slightly rolling sound, and the music also starts with triplets in the viola part. And triplets is something else you're going to learn from this piece. Quite slow triplets, so not too complicated. And also, don't panic if you haven't got a viola player, because there's a third violin part which you can use instead. So I decided to include harmonics in the piece, to create that kind of pure, distinct shafts of light kind of moment in the piece, and you hear them at the beginning and later on in the piece. And if you read the performance notes that go with this piece, every single harmonic is explained. There's some little pictures with the stave on and the harmonic that's there, and it tells you exactly how to play all of them. So there's no worry about not knowing, what harmonic is where on the instrument for all the instruments that are involved in it, which is basically a string quartet and piano. And so having talked to you about the harmonics and talked to you about the piece, I'd like to play you the recording of the piece that I made myself, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you found this interesting.